Welcome back to Let's Overthink This, and the second episode of the Desert Build series. On the first episode, we introed the project, basically a tiny home and larger accessory building off-grid near Joshua Tree. But now it's time to start moving dirt. While I'll be doing a lot of the work myself on this overall project, I don't have the equipment or experience to do this grading work myself, so I hired Sam Cantu Backhoe Services to get it done for me. Now, some of you have seen my tractor videos, and you know that I have a larger compact class Kubota tractor. Just for comparison's sake, this is what the Cat wheel loader looks like that the grader brought in to move dirt. It should be pretty obvious that I couldn't get this grading work done with that tractor. For most of the work, they're dealing with the wheel loader, an excavator, and a track loader. There's a big motor grader coming in later too. The first task, mostly between those survey markers that we showed in the last video, is to clear all the brush out and get it out of the way, and you can see the track loader actually compacting it because all that organic material needs to be hauled off in a dump trailer, and the fewer loads the better. Now the front loader is kind of back dragging, but using the teeth on the bottom of the bucket to scrape up any plant matter, branches, big rocks, stuff like that are left behind. I think this is also called scarifying, to break up some of those clumps of compacted material, but those of you who know, please drop an explanation in the comments. After this, you can see between the survey markers what we have is more or less cleared land, but it's not compacted or anything. Okay, fast motion. Now the front loader is going back and forth and scraping up a whole bunch of ground as they water it. You can see from a different angle here, really starting to dig up the ground. This is because for the bigger accessory building, the engineers required that we have 3 feet of over excavation. So they're digging all that material up and putting it in a big pile and back. Lots of water being used here. That's one of the things about this site, was we needed a lot of water we didn't have on site. Now, even though I have my own well, that well is not capable of drawing as much water as we needed for this, which was nearly a full-size water truck every day that the graders were here. These things end up costing a lot, and they may not be things you're expecting. The water is used for 2 things, to some extent to keep the dust down through all of this digging, but mainly to wet the material down, which is absolutely necessary in order to properly compact it, which comes soon. There's an elephant in the room, which is worth talking about. I picked this place because I love this place. It's beautiful and really peaceful here. And I love the plant life and the animal life that's here. But any sort of construction is bound to disrupt those animals and kill a lot of the plant life. And the plants don't grow quickly. There's so little water here that the plants take forever to grow. So just a little bush that might look dead, or even this big thing here, which obviously doesn't look dead, but it's been here for a very, very, very long time. And when a truck can't clear something else and has to run over some of the ground in an area I didn't intend it to, that area will kind of never grow back. I will have to plant something there that's of a different type, or put a big boulder there. And so it's just a kind of a reality you have to come to grips with. I think you rationalize it because you like spending time here and you're going to be a good steward for the land once all this is done. But I think anywhere you build, basically, this is a trade-off you have to make, and particularly here. We're going to tread as lightly as we can, but I'm sure someone would mention it if I didn't, and it's something that you contend with once you buy a beautiful piece of land and then start meddling with it. Okay, now back to the grading. After a lot of digging this morning, I'm standing in the over-ex area, the over-excavation area for where the workshop will eventually be. All that material, 3 feet down, was placed in that pile over there. The next step is to water this down, compact it, and then tomorrow morning, an engineering company comes to verify that we actually did the over-ex and that we compacted the bottom of it properly. Then, in thin layers, that material comes back in here, it's watered down, compacted over and over and over and over again in small lifts all the way back up to the top, and then the firm comes back to confirm that that whole thing is compacted properly. Now, the engineer who came to verify the compaction of the ground was going to use this cool thing, which is a nuclear density gauge. To simplify here, you kind of push that tube into the ground a fixed distance. It has a radioactive source at the end of it, and the main body of the unit is a detector that's been calibrated to it. The amount of radioactivity from that source that is blocked by the compacted ground between it and the detector tells you the density of the material. But the battery was dead, so he didn't use this at all and just used an old school method where you kind of take a metal spike with a T-handle and kind of shove it into the ground with your own body weight. So nothing really to see here. This is the beginning of all the soil being put back. The watering is happening, and then bucket load after bucket load are being grabbed from the pile and spread kind of thinly back into the site and back dragged. And so this way we get small, compact lifts all the way back up to the top. Now, I said compact lift, so all of this needs to be compacted as he's adding the material back. You can't just wait until you've added 3 feet and then compact it. You can't compact 3 feet at the same time. So I've seen people using things like plate compactors, which would probably work but take a while. Then there are those roller vehicles, like a steamroller you see on asphalt roads, but you got to keep in mind, we're really remote here, and so anything that you can't actually drive on the road to get here through the rocky terrain, you'd have to put on a trailer, and those are really heavy. So the grader's using what he has. He has his Big Cat 930M, which weighs around 31,000 pounds by itself. The bucket holds probably another several thousand pounds of material at least, and it's putting that combined 35,000 pounds down just through the contact patch of those 4 tires. So he goes back and forth with a full bucket load, and that's how he's compacting this between lifts. Now what we've been looking at is the big building, but the big building is much taller, it has a steel frame, it required a lot more ground preparation. That tiny studio is tiny. It doesn't weigh a lot, doesn't present a big obstruction to the wind, and you can go by the code book here without extra engineers weighing in. So in this case, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think we needed a lot of over-X. Just got to the bottom of where the footings were going to be and have it pretty compacted back up to the top. And so they're using the excavator to clear out the brush, and in this case, the compact track loader to compact the ground and to level it out. So he's back dragging, making sure it's nice and level. Now we have that big wheel loader we could have used for compaction, but it's not that easy to maneuver on this tiny pad. Now back to the big building and some more heavy equipment. A Cat 12H, which is a motor grader, rolls in. First off, he helped grade the road into the property to make sure it's nice and flat. The job of this vehicle will be to establish the final grade of the bigger building and give us a really nice level surface. The elevations we've been using are in relation to the well pad. In essence, we know the height above sea level of that well pad, and the grader has a laser receiver mounted on a pole that rides up and down with his blade. By putting a laser on a nearby hill where the receiver could pick it up, the operator touched his blade to the well pad, calibrated everything to that height, and then he knew how many feet and inches lower than that the pad of the building needed to be. His job is just to scrape off the top of the pad, which was intentionally left high, until it was exactly right. Now, admittedly, this felt like a really small area to be using this big motor grader in, but they got the job done. And that wraps it up for grading. You can see the progression of the land here. Stay tuned for the next episode coming out soon where we mark the land and start excavation for the footings and slab. Thanks for watching. See you next time.